Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you had a wonderful couple of days since I last saw you. A sizable green arrow, almost chopping the rank in half, resultant of a game week producing 82 points, which is a very healthy score this week. And who knows, maybe the rank will be chopped in half, and maybe it'll do a little bit better than that if they decide to give the Gabriel assist. Of course, it lays with Opta as opposed to official FPL, just in case you fancied going and abusing the admin. There really is no need for that. Today, I shall have you specific player insights, and we did learn things. And I thought the game for the second week in a row started to take a little bit of a different direction. So we're going to discuss that and how that relates to the players. We will, of course, have match analysis and transfer plans, which, whilst not taking the shift it usually does, certainly still has some difference to what I was thinking last week and only a couple of days ago. So all of that good stuff to look forward to. And for myself, I look forward to seeing you subscribe if you have not already, especially if you're one of the thousands that watch regularly who haven't. And make sure to drop a like on the video if you enjoy it. Aiming for 300 likes this video. Without anything else needing to be said, however, let's hop into it. Whilst this section won't be titled Sanchez Supremacy, it won't be titled Cell's Supremacy either. They're both blanked within their own rights. Obviously, Cell still scored triple what Sanchez did, but nonetheless, it was only a 2-point difference. In the first half, it looked like the clean sheet was certainly on, apart from those few seconds where Bournemouth had a couple chances and they hit the post. Overall, we looked very secure, and Bournemouth didn't look particularly threatening. And it was interesting. In the first half, I actually had a thought of Cliver taking a penalty before he'd even come onto the pitch. And could Sanchez, who's a decent shot stopper from penalties, I would say, potentially save one of the better penalty takers in the league? And obviously, in the second half, we found out. And the answer yesterday was at least no. And then obviously the Semenyo strike to take 1 point off him. I don't mind conceding the Semenyo goal. Yeah, Josh could have got a little bit tighter, but even that's being hypercritical because how often does a player do what Semenyo does? The penalty wasn't good on our part, and it is what it is. When I bought him, I understood the risk. I understood that if we were to churn out clean sheets, there would always be luck associated in comparison to a side like Forest, who would just play very well and really earn that clean sheet simply due to the way we play. But with that comes upside that probably Sales doesn't have at the moment. Maybe in the game against Liverpool, but not so much in regular weeks, right? And look, I accepted that risk when I made the switch, and it is what it is. I still think he's fine to own going forward. He maybe gets sold in 23 purely to facilitate other things, which we'll discuss at a later point in this video. But for now, I'm still happy with him. And I know people are getting a little bit frustrated, and that's fair enough, but I think it would be a very inefficient transfer to move him on to pretty much anyone, considering the run's still pretty good. You will notice that there is a question mark as opposed to a number besides Gabriel's name. And that is because I am hoping that on Opta, they change it from a pass from Gabriel to a shot instead, which would mean that, resulting in the rules that FPL have, he would indeed get the assist. And you know what? It may not seem like a big deal because all your mini league rivals own him, but he's about 50% effective ownership. That's 1.5 points. I'm taking that. That's about 1,000 and a few places, maybe even like 1,300 places. That's a lot, right? Especially as you start to climb the ranks. Say you're, for example, I don't know, a 10k and it does 800 places. That's a big difference. That's nearly 10% of your rank. So I would very much like those points, and I'm holding out for them. Hopefully, opt to make the change. Originally, I thought he scored, and then he went from a goal to nothing. One thing I forgot to mention, by the way, is the mic stand will be here for either everything you need to know or solving your problems and connection. Fine, so that's good news. Moving on to the rest of the defense, I mean, Lewis Hall, he produces again. Pound for pound, he's been amazing. And you know what? Even if he cost me the price that Trent had, since, what is it, game week 12, 13, 14, he has been absolutely brilliant. And I'm so delighted that I've owned him for pretty much the whole season. I haven't had to bring him in and lose value on him as such. He's just been absolutely brilliant. And I'm sure the attacking returns will come. They weren't very likely in this game, just given how Wolves played. We'll come on to that later. But in general, if he's going to consistently keep these clean sheets, then that's brilliant. And the run until 26 is still pretty decent. Obviously, we've got Southampton away, and even Bournemouth at home is an interesting prospect. I would say he's not as likely to get an attacking return or a clean sheet in that particular game, but it is good for the likes of Gordon and Isak, who I own. And then Gvardiol, I really was looking at this potential other clean sheet for myself, where I got very lucky because he was very lucky to keep it against Leicester. Nearly got it against West Ham, but the luck ran out. And obviously here, they don't just score once, they score twice. And to be honest, I can't really complain. I knew the prospect of him getting a clean sheet was far lower, in my opinion, than what the odds suggested. I know the firepower that Brentford have, and I'm very much looking forward to owning their assets at least at some point this season, and for a longer period than 2 weeks where they're both blank. And he didn't have too much attacking threat this game, I would say, compared to usual. We'll come on to that in match analysis. Naturally, given the games were all on at the same time and Chelsea were playing at the same time as City, I didn't catch too much of it. But he has one more week before he's going to move on. And he's the one player in 23 that I would say is absolutely nailed to move on, regardless. He could score a 21 pointer against Ipswich. I'm still going to be selling him because there's too much upside associated to bringing those Liverpool players in. There is a lot to unpack here, but we shall start with captaincy. Firstly and foremost, if you chose Alexander Isak as your captain, congratulations. Enjoy your win and your 16-pointer. Very, very healty haul. Overall, in terms of getting a 10-pointer, I think that's pretty good, especially when Salah at 160% EO blanked. However, he really should have had more for that first half performance alone. Should have definitely had at least one more assist, but Jackson misses a couple chances. And, that's just how it goes. On another day, he hauls much bigger. But on another day, Salah hauls much bigger as well. The last 20, 30 minutes of that game reminded me of Newcastle away. And fine margins meant that Newcastle away was, 18, 19 points, 18 points. And here, only a 2-pointer. Swings and roundabouts. And overall, the fact that he beat Salah, I'm still happy. Obviously, Isak outscored him by 6 points. Considering Isak's EO was about, 104%. Overall, I would still say this is a win, especially in terms of overall rank, which is, for me, at least, the focus. I know people look at mini leagues, but for me, I just kind of focus on overall rank, and then that would take care of the mini leagues. Moving on to the rest of the midfield, absolutely brilliant. I mean, Morgan Rogers, he returns again. It might only be a 6-pointer, but I think 6 points from your cheapest midfield asset, from your 8th attacker, or 7th, because I prefer him to João Pedro, is very, very, very healthy. And he just does it again. 14 against City, 11 against Brighton, 6 away to Everton. Last week, obviously, he was suspended. In his place, I play João Pedro, 9-pointer against Arsenal. So the rotation is working wonderfully, and I can see it staying for a while. Gordon, he looked lively in the first half, that's for sure, and he was unfortunate not to get a return. But through Isak's lack of selfishness, he puts on a plate for him, and Gordon slots away for a 9-pointer. And since I bought him, he got a goal away at Spurs, and now he's got a goal at home to Wolves, 7-pointer, then a 9-pointer. And again, I cannot complain in the slightest. Averaging 8 points per game at his prices is really, really solid, especially when there are other options, right? Ryan Mbeumo, Odegaard, Bruno, who's obviously still yet to play, and he did well at Anfield as well. But overall, he's done fantastic. And then the start of the game week. I mean, considering that it was a fairly tight call, and I stuck to my guns on keeping Foden this week, and I was fairly adamant I was going to do that after maybe like a day or two before the deadline. For him to walk away with a 15-pointer, I'm delighted with. I mean, he didn't have that much in the game, but City were enough of a threat whereby I thought a goal was justified. 2 goals was definitely slightly lucky. The De Bruyne pass is unbelievable. It's a top finish as well, but the De Bruyne pass is unbelievable. And the rebound falls so kindly from the Savinho shot to him. Obviously, he has a good record at Brentford, scored a hat-trick away there last year. And like I mentioned, maybe he's just finding a little bit of form, even if it was through a little bit of luck earlier on. So, for example, the assist away at West Ham, for us at least, very lucky. The assist away at Leicester, pretty lucky for us owners. The goal against West Ham, again, I would say quite lucky. Even the finish was a little bit lucky. And then this game, 2 well-taken finishes, and maybe that's just the catalyst he needs to go on an extensive run of returning. And no one can really get here either. With Ipswich away, I'm very much looking forward to the prospect of owning him. So that's very solid. I realize I haven't even addressed the bench with Anthony Robinson. I would say it's a fair call if you say that I got the call between Guardiola and Robinson wrong. I'd say fair enough. I don't think there was too much in it anyway. But Fulham did concede 3, and both of his assists were very, very, very fortunate. We'll come on to why I actually think he can continue to return the type of assist he is at the moment. Match analysis section. But overall, with this unit of the team, very, very happy. To round off the team, we have Alexander Isak and Nicholas Jackson. I mean, there's not too much to say on Alexander Isak apart from just relaying a bunch of superlatives. He is in absolutely seriously good form, and he's just a top striker, and he's probably just going to keep returning. The fixtures are there for, I think, Bournemouth at home, Southampton away, both from a stylistic standpoint and then quality of opposition gap between the teams. With all due respect, I would say there's no reason he can't go and put on another haul and another haul. So yeah, if you don't have him, it's probably been a tough period. Albeit I've seen at least one team this week who didn't have Isak, got a very healthy score and a big green arrow at that. So there are more than one way to skin the cat, especially this year. And then Jackson. We'll come on to him in transfer plans. A 4-pointer that didn't really reflect the quality of performance. The actual performance was brilliant, and there were so many brilliant parts to it. For example, when he started to come a little bit wider and dropped a little bit deeper at the time. and he would leave and then turn his hold-up play, his link-up play, and just be able to get into the positions in the first place, the pass for Palmer. There was a lot of good stuff about it. But obviously, the shot, and the chance he generated pretty much all by himself, hits the post and goes out. Then he has the header, which he should score, but it gets saved. And the rebound, again, he should score, in my opinion, but it gets saved. Madueke cutback, he skies over the bar. So yeah, it's really difficult with him to analyze it at the moment. However, there's one particular point I'd like to discuss with transfer plan, which doesn't reflect so well on him as an asset. But Wolves at home, considering what they showed today, could be another opportunity for a haul. So let's see what happens, and we shall go from there. He's not going to be moving this, I do not think, at least. Yeah, that's the team. Overall, to walk away with 82 points, half your rank at my rank, I think it is a brilliant, brilliant game week. And considering we've got all the chips left, hopefully we can keep moving in this direction and do something special this season. As of last night, 2 managers who reside in the top 50 in the world can be found in our community. So if it's good enough for them, potentially it's good enough for you. And whether you're looking to get a little bit more out of FPL or life, this really could be the community for you. You see the perks on offer, the exclusive WhatsApp community group. There is such a good feel-good factor in there, and a lot of talk as well, just to amplify your experience, exclusive football analysis, or if you prefer the diamond tier, you would get all of that, including the 1-hour Q&A calls, which largely extend past an hour if we need. There is a lot of value on offer here, so just consider it, even for 1 month. And if you don't like it, by all means, cancel. I will happily answer any questions you may have, and I hope to see some of you there. It really could be an absolutely brilliant decision for yourself, but you won't know unless you try. Minimum downside, maximum upside. Considering it was Graham Potter's first game in charge of West Ham, I thought we would start with his victory over Fulham. However, we are going to start with Fulham because I think it's really important to note the change in Marco Silva's system and how that's positively affected Anthony Robinson in terms of output. We saw that we saw that Fulham moved to a back 5 in Sandberg's absence, and Robinson was playing. They lined up with a traditional back 4, and when I saw the team sheet, okay, we've got Robinson back in a back 4. However, it was very much a back 3 in build-up where Castagna tucked into right centre-back, and Robinson would go high and wide. He would almost pin Kudus to an extent, so West Ham's 4-4-2 mid-block certainly had a little bit of space and was a little bit jagged, if you want to say, because Kudus kind of had to follow him, and it pushed Iwobi into the half spaces. Now, the particularly relevant thing for this is he's higher and he's wider than he usually is, mainly the higher bit. And why is that so important? Well, if he's going to be in closer proximity to the zones where he's able to cross and able to deliver attacking returns from, specifically assists, well, then the likelihood of it must go up. And it was a persistent thing throughout the game that they formed this 3 and Robinson would go. And it also makes a lot of sense with his quality of delivery. So I don't necessarily think the rate of assists is going to decline. Now, of course, the 2 that he had against West Ham were very fortuitous. However, there are going to be times where he just puts in a good ball from these zones because he's there more often and he's just going to profit as a result. So what I would say is that was a change in dynamic which we didn't really see. Fulham were lining up with their back 4 early in the season, and it's certainly something I would consider before benching Robinson from now on. And had I known that he was going to do that, maybe I would have been a little bit more inclined to start him, or albeit I still don't think I would have. And that's good for Iwobi as well, because it pulled Iwobi into the half spaces. Yeah, he scored 2 goals, but that's not really the point. It's just the fact that he was getting into better position. Even from the throw-in, right, he kind of found himself that, like, the first throw-in within like 6 or 7 minutes, he found himself in that half space, and then he played a nice ball into Harry Wilson, who hit the bar, and he could have generated an assist there. Now, Iwobi's a good player. I think he's slightly underrated, just in general. He's also having a brilliant season, and when he's in those zones, I do think with his level of quality, he can hurt teams and return you points. So that is something to consider if you are looking to go there. Not necessarily advocating for the transfer, but for those of you who hold him, I think you can be expecting more points, especially if this dynamic continues. And for those of you who are considering him, I don't think it's the worst buy in the world. Albeit, I would say there are probably more efficient transfers. If you're making a downgrade to get cash out to upgrade to a Trent or a Van Dijk or a Gakpo, right, then I don't mind it as much. Moving on to Graham Potter's West Ham, largely a 4-4-2 mid-block off the ball, but one thing I would say is compared to Lopetegui, far more compact. Their structure was far more compact, and they're not going to concede as many goals as the Lopetegui side did. And I think that's really important because now we must perceive West Ham in a different light. And it's not just that. Potter's ideology on maybe how he should approach managerial position, I would say, is very different of many of the managers in the league, especially given the current era. He's far more adaptable, and we've seen that throughout all his tenures. He will adapt. just make even little tweaks to his system prior to games to account for the opposition strength. Whereas maybe someone like Arnie Slot, who's maybe not the best example because he definitely changes things as well, still has a system and he's going to play his system. But I do think Potter has a lot of a lot of more flexibility within his ranks. It's not a good thing, it's not a bad thing, it just is. You can perceive it however you like, but that's important to know because I do think that for every opposition he comes up against, he'll have some form of a solution. Whether it works or not, I think he'll make the opposition's life harder at least. He's a very smart man, right? I'm sure he has a smart coaching staff behind that. When they were building mainly a 3-2-2-3 with Wan-Bissaka forming a right centre back and then Emerson going on, and he was very much playing like a hybrid left back, left wing role. Paquetá almost in these 9 like zones, Kudus right wing, Check, and Carlos Soler left hand side 8, which I spoke about on X. Certainly has an angle bias to their body. That's why I think he almost, if he doesn't play on the left hand side, I don't personally think you should do him at all. That's just my personal opinion. And then obviously they had their pivot. I would say in general everything was better going forward. They didn't look too threatening. I thought Fulham contained them fairly well, but obviously they have 3 goals to secure for it. I think the press for the first goal was something that was coached. That was more of a man-to-man there. Maybe there was a trigger, which I didn't really notice, and they will go. And obviously, Carlos Soler profits off a blind Andreas Pereira pass. Goes right to him. So overall, I think they look far better defensively. I thought they've far better coached. I thought the press and off-the-ball structure was certainly more impressive than it was against Lopetegui. And look, I didn't watch the whole game, right? I caught bits of it. And I went back and watched a bit as well. I got up to date with a few things. I didn't watch the whole game, so I'll undoubtedly be missing things. But overall, I think certainly a positive sign for West Ham. There are obviously missing players at the moment as well. They'll only get better. And just in terms of playing attackers against them, I would not be anywhere near as bullish as I was under Lopetegui. So that's that. We very much could have buried the game in the first half, but we didn't, and we got punished deservedly so again, as we have done for parts of January and pretty much the whole of December. One thing we should speak about, though, first of all, is Lavia's impact on the team. Direct relation to the team and how he improves us, and indirectly how he improves us. His press resistance is genuinely phenomenal. You saw it against Spurs, and you saw it yet again today. It's a culmination of many things. It's not just his IQ or ability on the ball, but also his strength. His body is so strong. So when he takes it on the half turn, for example, if you're trying to wrap the leg around to dispossess him, it's very difficult. If you're coming at a slightly awkward angle and the stride is not as strong as it should be. One thing I talked about when it came to footballers in terms of their carrying ability is stride strength. As an example, I'm going slightly off topic here, but as an example, when you were in school and you had the 100 meters on sports day, there would be those guys who are very quick but didn't really play too much sports. That's because their strength of stride probably wasn't as strong as some of the other guys who, as such, were more coordinated in sport and therefore could perform better. That's just one thing. He's pretty much got all of that, and as such, he's got a lot of good things going on about him. And as such, he's pretty much a high press killer. And that allows us to then play and get the ball into our front men and Palmer more and in better and more advantageous positions. So that's the first thing. He also allows us to change, I would say, the formation and the system as well. Because Caicedo now comes from an inverted right back position. So in terms of his role, it's slightly different. He can genuinely focus more on the defensive side of the game. I don't think he's as crucial to our build-up now that we have Lavia, who's probably better in that regard. And instead of having a diamond in midfield or one of our fullbacks inverting all the way into the midfield, kind of congesting it, taking away from Palmer's dominance within that section of the pitch, it's very much just a box again. So Enzo also has a bit more of a license and more freedom to attack, which I think is good. But Palmer doesn't play at the top of the diamond now. So he doesn't really stray to the left hand. He does when he does top of the diamond. But now he plays on the right and pretty much solely on the right. And we've seen that this is where Cole Palmer is at his best. So he does so many good things for the team. Having him back is a very, very big plus. So I think you can expect Chelsea to score goals and create chances. It's just whether we put them away. I like Madueke's directness, and I think he gets a bit of a... I think his bad rep is actually somewhat justified, given he certainly has been selfish at times this season. However, viewing him through that lens will ensure that whenever you watch him, you kind of only look out for those things. When it came to Harry Maguire, for example, people would look for mistakes and not perceive him as a bad player. As such, they saw bad performances. When in actuality, that very much wasn't the case often with Harry Maguire. And with Madueke, just because he is selfish at times, I don't think you should allow that to take away sometimes good performances and good parts of his game. For example, when he took on, I think it was Kirkes yesterday, or he took on Tyler Adams, and he put that ball back in for Jackson. That's very good, and that direct approach is good, and it's also good for Palmer because one thing I noticed with Madueke is he almost functions like a magnet of sorts, and Palmer always has his pocket on the right, and like within this right half space. Now it requires him to pass the ball for us to profit of it, but it's on. It's often quite often, and you don't get that as much with Neto. Someone who's always looking to maybe stretch the last line a little bit, or in general doesn't really create that separation for a few reasons. Then, in terms of Nicholas Jackson, like I mentioned earlier, he had such a brilliant game, or brilliant first half at least, aside from the finishing. And we'll come on to him when we come to transfer plans. In the second half, we were much flatter. I thought Bournemouth were a little bit more compact as well, and they handled our waves of pressure better. We didn't really create too much. Penalty, I mean, just a mistake from us. It happens. And then the Semenyo strike, as I mentioned earlier, I'm fine with that. That's just a bit of quality from a quality player. And that's fine. I still thought Bournemouth in the middle was susceptible, and I still think that number 9s and number 10s will have good days against them. Again, the striker gets an assist and really should have more, and the 10, even though he's playing on the right-hand side, scores and again should have more. So if you're playing against them, or your assets are playing against them, and their wingers, so for example, Gordon, I would be slightly more careful about, being so bullish on them that you win or captain them, because I know some people captain Gordon this week. But for someone like Isak, I think it's very much on the card. Well, Hall's very much on the cards. So yeah, I don't have too much analysis from the second half. I don't think it was overly relevant, apart from the fact that, yes, again, we showed that maybe it's a mentality thing, that we're not closing games out, and probably is more of a mentality thing, right? And that's something to certainly consider with us when it comes to the fact that, yeah, we're creating a lot of chances, but maybe that's almost limited until the opposition score, and then we struggle a little bit. So maybe the ceilings are slightly capped. Just some things to consider. For those of you who captained Alexander Isak, congratulations. Now, we spoke about how Wolves could potentially take a different approach and learn from what they did against Nottingham Forest. They didn't really do that. I thought even in general build-up, they were just a little bit too open for my liking. The amount of nearly moments Newcastle had, they had so many nearly moments in the first half where Gordon nearly got in or nearly scored. And same with Isak, right? For example, the save that Saul makes, yeah, it was offside, but if he's a yard further back, probably goes in the net and it's onside as well, right? And there were just so many of these due to the general lack of compactness. And I think playing with a midfield too, you don't have, we'll call it a space heater or a superb athlete, genuinely a massive physical presence, not just in terms of like his running capacity, but also just his general size. I think it's difficult to keep teams out for the whole 90 minutes, especially when they have quality. Forest showed it, Newcastle showed it, and I expect Chelsea to show it as well. One thing I noticed with Newcastle today that I probably hadn't noticed, either I hadn't noticed it, but I do think it was a slight changes. Joel Linton definitely plays higher up than Bruno G. I was aware of that, but he really held those zones, whereby I would almost classify him more as a very attacking 8/10 today. We'll call it very attacking 8. 10's a bit of a stretch, as opposed to just an out-and-out 8. Of course, he has an incredible work rate, right? But it's just, in general, the zones he was occupying when Newcastle had the ball. Bruno G is one of his responsibilities, even though he's playing as an 8, is still to help him build up, and saw that at times today, right? So, when it is like that, I don't mind in certain game states the opposition just going to be a little bit more compact, because I don't think Joel Linton is the most creative player in the world, and giving him a game where there's more space and can transition in general when he's even slightly higher up in receiving, I think that's a bit of a mistake. So Wolves could have changed things there as well. Individually, I thought Newcastle were pretty good, and like I said, I was kind of flicking through the games just to get a grasp of what was going on in all of them. But overall, a very solid performance. Probably could have been a little bit better, but overall, a very solid performance. I think Wolves definitely have threat within their front three. But it's difficult to build off that in a game when your foundation isn't as strong. Even though he's playing a back three, I think there's space. You don't really associate that with back threes traditionally. I think they need to fix their pivot and the general philosophy of how aggressive they want to be and where they want to be aggressive. They can go from there. So I expect Chelsea to score a few goals past them. In terms of Isak going forward, the lock, right? You just can't sell him at the moment. Just so good. I thought Gordon was also very sharp today, and could have easily got more than one return. And then in general, Bruno G, unbelievably good in that midfield. One thing today is the fullbacks definitely didn't, but at least Lewis Hall didn't have as many opportunities to return as he does. The commentators spoke about how the ball was going long, and that didn't allow Newcastle to press in the same way, so Hall can have a higher starting position. And I actually think that's a good solve against Newcastle. just to take that quality away from them a little bit. Obviously, they're a big side, so going long to them is not easy. Certainly, if you've got a big side, I don't mind it. For example, a Solanke presence up top. And then, like I said, I was just flicking through the games. I caught most of the Arsenal first half. Twice in the space of 5 minutes, Partey's legs were not sufficient enough to protect the Arsenal defense when Tottenham were transitioning. First time they got away with it. I think it resulted in the corner, and they got away with it. But the second time, from the resulting corner, they didn't. I think this is going to be an issue against sides who can transition well. And there's a lot of sides in the league now, right? Even Wolves. Wolves have got a lot of that transitional threat. Chelsea do, and so many of the other sides do in the league, given the athletic nature of it and also the attacking quality, standard of attacking quality as well. So that is something to consider when it comes to Arsenal keeping clean sheets. City, same story with them as we've seen in many of the previous games. I'm not going to go it too much, but I think lack of legs in the middle, and just like their injuries in defense, specifically to Ruben Diaz, not really helping at the moment. And yeah, very much the same stories. And I didn't watch too much of the game. Go into it too much. But from what I did see, Wilson and Bremer, again, still huge threat. And owning them at pretty much any point and having them and leaving them, Brentford are going to score goals against pretty much everyone, right? So, and it's very much going to come from those two. So, absolutely fine. They will probably never be an urgent or solid sell. I'm still quite adamant that the best play for most, if not all, is to prioritize getting in what you deem to be the optimal Liverpool trio for Game Week 23, not double Game Week 24, because I think you should allow yourself to access the upside that is held in Ipswich at home, with all due respect, right? So that is what I think everyone, in my opinion, should be prioritizing. Of course, there will be a few instances where people have to prioritize other things or just get to Liverpool for 24 as opposed to 23. But in most cases, that's where I think the priority should be. I showed you my potential route to my favoured or previously favoured Liverpool triple up, and that was to take Sanchez out for Henderson, to relinquish the 0.2 million I would need, Foden to Eze, and then Gvardiol and Robinson to Trent and Virgil van Dijk. I've got slightly cold feet on Virgil van Dijk for two reasons. One, I can see Liverpool scoring a fair few goals, plus Ipswich and Wolves, at least combined, which means that there's more upside potentially associated to Cody Gakpo, and they're just conceding at a fairly regular basis. Whether that's due to performance or a little bit of bad luck, you could argue both. But considering I've already got Trent and the fact that Nicholas Jackson potentially may be a sell by that point, maybe I consider getting Cody Gakpo in and accepting lower expected minutes across those 4 games to potentially access more upside. However, the counter to that would be, it's not just the 4 games they've got. They've also got a very intense schedule. Carabao Cup or the EFL Cup and the Champions League. So maybe Gakpo's minutes get even worse as a result of that. Whereas Van Dijk is just 90 minutes every game, no problem. And you never have to, like, when's the last time you saw Van Dijk on the bench for a game, right? Or even a Champions League? Pretty much never. So you can safely expect the minutes at least. And he's still got the attacking upside, right? From set pieces. So whether it is Van Dijk in or whether it is Gakpo in, I will still be there with a Liverpool triple up. Trent is non-negotiable for me. I think the haul is around the corner. And over that 4-game span, to not walk away with at least an attack and return would be unlikely, in my opinion. And then you just have to pair it, right, with a clean sheet and hope you get a little bit lucky there. And to be honest, it might not even be luck. It might be quite very, very, very deserving, given the performance that he puts in. So that's that. The only other thing I probably have to say here is that if I don't go Gakpo, I will go Van Dijk. I can't see myself going. Just because if he gets benched for 1 game, it really diminishes the value of going for him in the first place. There is potentially the situation where I might be 0.1 off. And even if not, assuming Robinson rises, I should be fine. I don't really want to sell Sanchez because I'd only really want to sell him for Henderson. But he has that blank game at 29, which means I'll have to use a transfer down the line for him. And after this game week, I'll be back to having just 1 free because I'll be using all 4 in 1 week, looking to roll. So if I do that, instead of losing Sanchez, do I genuinely just lose Jackson, even with his good fixtures in 27 and 28? Do I just go and get a Johan Wissa? Do I go and get a Chris Wood? And if I'm going to sell Jackson, maybe I even do it this week and get Chris Wood, but I'd have to commit to it early, right? So there's all those things I'm thinking about. It very much rests on how I view Nicholas Jackson's prospects going forward. And whilst I think he's still going to accumulate, whilst I think from a stylistic perspective, Wolves at home is still pretty good. City away was fine. West Ham at home, I don't really like it as much anymore. Even with the chances, the thing that worries me is if he's going to score even like one, let's say one a game, his ceiling will be reduced by the fact that he's going to hurt himself on the bonus points system because he's missing chances. The second thing is he's not putting them away anyway to get that second return. And when Johan Wissa is playing for a Brentford side up top that generates so many chances, he's looked really good. When Chris Wood is in such good form, do I just bite the bullet? And as much as there's these underlyings for Jackson, and as much as there's so many good things going for him, and the fact that he increases my upside when I go Palmer captain, which I've clearly shown myself to be happy to do I still bite the bullet and just sell him? Because he does allow me to relinquish cash. That cash can be used in other places down the line as well, which is very helpful. And who knows, maybe I don't even need to sell Robinson there. I can sell someone else. Maybe just have a really stacked defense for the unlikely, but a potential avenue. And the last thing to discuss is what if Phil Foden hauls against Ipswich? Because if he hauls against Ipswich, that would mean it would be 6 points against Leicester, 8 points against West Ham, 15 points against a haul against Ipswich, and then he plays at home against the Chelsea side, who certainly are there for the taking in terms of at least scoring a goal or two again. That becomes a more difficult sell. And getting cash out of Jackson and getting quite a bit of cash out of Jackson allows me potentially to maybe, just maybe, make another move, downgrade someone significantly, maybe even sell a Gabriel, and it allows me to keep Phil Foden if I wish. I just want to have that flexibility open to myself, which is why I would probably roll this week. Albeit, whilst I hadn't had the thought until now, bringing in Wood for Jackson seems quite attractive considering he's got Southampton at home. But we'll see what they do on Thursday night. Probably when all watching this, or definitely watching this, and go from there. There's still a few routes open, but as you can see, all my plans are very much focused around Liverpool, 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 and they will be the priority. If I want Van Dijk and Trent, I will sacrifice elsewhere. If I want Gakpo and Trent, I will sacrifice. I will sacrifice for Liverpool, but not the other way. That is all she wrote for this video, ladies and gentlemen. I shall see you very shortly for everything you need to know. Remember, 300 likes on the video is a target, so if you have not already done so and enjoyed the video, please do press it and do subscribe if you have not already, as we now push to 7,000 subscribers. I very much look forward to seeing you on everything you need to know and producing it, because there is a lot to talk about. So make sure to put your questions in the comments below. But until then, have a wonderful day. Goodbye.